YouTube is the most important platform. I'm pivoting so hard into it. SEO is never going to be the way it was before. My team and I, we decided to just kind of repurpose some old content in video form, put it on YouTube, and I was like, holy shit. And it was actually bringing in new people who had never heard of me before. This algorithm is still finding new people out there. Best algorithm, best discovery. That's insanely powerful.
Do you have like a primary growth channel?
It's mostly YouTube at this. I mean, this is another reason why I'm pivoting so hard into it, is because I started out as a blogger primarily. And that was great up until probably the late 2010s. That has been drying up very slowly. It's been a very long attrition process. But it was pretty clear, you know, probably back in 2020, that it's like, okay, SEO is never going to be the way it was before. None of the platforms promote links anymore, right? So it's like, you're never going to get that organic website traffic. Like the organic website traffic is probably just going to go down forever. Yeah. And then 10 years it'll be gone. So accepted that. So in 2020, I started going really hard in the other social platforms. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook to a lesser extent, LinkedIn. And we got some, like Twitter and Instagram, we got some pretty decent traction on, but it always feels like you're climbing up a hill. Like it almost feels like the algorithm's working against you. Like on the Facebook platforms, they're absolutely working against you because they want you to pay for reach. And in Twitter, I don't know, there's just some kind of weird mismatch between my brand and the audience that it just feels like I'm just walking into a huge headwind. And so YouTube was the first thing that it just felt like there was a massive tailwind at my back. Like it's just new people started showing up for the first time in like 3 or 4 years. Some of that is unique to me. I know there are some people who have been growing on Twitter a lot. I know there's some people who've grown on Instagram a lot, but for whatever reason, my content, my brand, it just seems to be YouTube.
You're just saying, hey, YouTube is the biggest thing, the biggest opportunity probably in the next decade, which is why you're all in on it. So let's start with that first.
Yeah, in my opinion, if you are in a creative field or in a content business, YouTube is the most important platform today, bar none, like no question, in my mind, personally. First of all, just best algorithm overall, best discovery. The format is such, you know, like TikTok has a great algorithm, but the format of the videos on TikTok, it's so short and punchy and it's impersonal that it's much harder to build a strong brand that people identify with.
You don't remember the people you watch on TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah. You can spend 30 minutes on TikTok and not remember a single thing you just saw. Yeah. Whereas on YouTube, like there's something about the long form video, it builds that personal connection much more strongly. It's also like way better monetized. The CPMs on YouTube are significantly better than any other platform. And Google is just better at figuring out which ads to put where. It's also still growing. It's the fastest growing platform. If you look at like survey data of pretty much anybody under 25, like 99% of them are on YouTube. Yeah. 70% on Netflix, and then like maybe 50% watch TV.
Is that your behavior? So when I eat lunch, sometimes I'm just watching stuff on YouTube. Like, is that what you do?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that was actually what kind of tripped me off on it. Is I noticed maybe 2-3 years ago, it's like, wow, I kind of just spend all my free time on YouTube. And like, I don't even open Netflix unless I already know what I'm going to watch. Yeah. You know, and that got me kind of curious. I mean, it was a combination of that. And then there was another thing, which was in 2020 during the pandemic, my team and I, we decided to just kind of repurpose some old content in video form. It was just kind of like a little side project to do because we were just doing a lot of that at the time. Didn't think anything of it, put it on YouTube. And not only like did YouTube just blow up so much faster than any other platform, but it was the only platform that we repurposed content on, and it was actually bringing in new people who had never heard of me before. Yeah. That had not happened in like 5 years. And I was like, holy shit, this algorithm is still finding new people out there that, you know, that's pretty insanely powerful.
How big's your YouTube right now? Like more so, how many views are you getting per month, and then subscribers?
So it's about 1 million subscribers. And then I think we're doing between 2.5 and 3 million views each month.
You're basically making a new show right now.
I kind of looked into this maybe 1.5 years ago, and I came to the conclusion, I'm like, okay, YouTube's the new TV. From 2018 through 2022, I spent a large part of that 4 years doing a feature documentary, doing a number of TV deals, and also following Will Smith around the world and watching all the movies and TV shit that he did. So I was very enmeshed in kind of traditional media / Hollywood for those 3 or 4 years. And I was not impressed. I came away from it. It felt very much like a stodgy, old, bloated industry that spends way too much money and is losing relevance. And it was funny because I'm friends with a few people in that world, a few producers in Hollywood, and every single one I sat down with and talked to and was like, I'm thinking about going all in on YouTube. Every single one said, great idea.
And these are like A-list celebs?
Not A-list. No. These are
A-list.
producers.
Okay,
These are the suits.
Producer. Okay, got
These
it.
are the suits. Every single one I talked to was like, that's a really good idea. Like, that's a smart move. That adds a little bit more context. So that, coming into, I started doing a bunch of research and I came to this conclusion, like, okay, YouTube, if my assumption is YouTube's the next TV. And where that means at this stage of the game, we're still very, very early in this market's development. So we're in the land grab phase, right? So it's like, man, whoever can scale up the fastest and the strongest is just going to win. It's just going to have this massive advantage over the next 10, 20 years. And so that's when I kind of put everything on hold, had a number of contracts, book contracts, TV contracts, and I was just like,
fuck it all.
Yeah, I'm like, not doing it. Yeah. And gonna go do this YouTube thing. And the fact that, this is the other thing too, is the fact that everybody thought I was crazy, like reaffirmed that this was a good idea. I'm like, okay, good. Because if
they all said it's good, it's like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. It's too late. If everybody thinks it's a good idea, you're too late. But if everybody thinks you're fucking nuts, then it's like, okay, you might be on to something.
Awesome.
So yeah, the assumption is, we're in a land grab phase. So looking at the terrain of YouTube right now, there's a ton of talent. Most of it tends to be very young. And so it tends to be, this is the other thing that like tripped me off, like massive opportunity. The talent on YouTube tends to be extremely young and professionally inexperienced. So they're not good managers. They don't understand finance. They don't know how to manage money. They still don't have a super strong conception of like brand. I mean, some of them naturally do, but most of them are just kind of stumbled onto a thing that worked and they just keep doing it. So I'm like, okay, this is great. I have a huge competitive advantage, right? And I looked at it and I'm like, okay, if a bunch of people, if this space is going to grow massively and it's going to get way more competitive, like how can I stay ahead of the curve, or how can I do something that nobody else in my industry is doing? So everybody in my industry, which is kind of personal development, life advice, they do the classic thing. They sit behind a desk and they're like, here are 3 reasons that you're not getting all the work done you wish you were getting, whatever. And then it's like, it's a 9-minute video and it's like reason number 1. And then, whatever.
Direct to camera.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay. And I had been doing a lot of that and it had been fairly successful. I was like, okay, this is going to die in like 2 years.
It sucks the soul out of you when you're doing that. At least it does for me. It just doesn't resonate with me.
No, it's not that much fun to make. And then I've also noticed that I don't enjoy watching it anymore either. But my issue with it primarily, or like if I'm putting my strategic hat on, is that it's too easily replicable, right? So it's like any dude with a successful business or an interesting career can sit down behind a desk, write up like 3 reasons why you're not more productive, and do the exact same video you just did, right? So I'm like, okay, if we're looking 2 years ahead, this whole format's going to be super saturated. So what can I do, first of all, to elevate this type of life advice, make it more interesting, more enjoyable to watch? Second of all, do something that's like has a moat. It's like super hard to copy and replicate.
A content moat.
Yes. Yeah. And the conclusion I came to is ironic because it kind of comes full circle back to the beginning of my career, which is do in-person coaching, but record it and then scale that content. So early in my career, like some of the first money I ever made in my career was in-person coaching. But like a lot of people who coach, I stopped doing it because it's fucking really hard to scale. I gave that up because it was impossible to scale. But then I kind of came to this realization. I'm like, if you make the coaching session super interesting, visually interesting, fun, dynamic, and then you film it, that's actually a very profitable way to scale it. And it's also, it utilizes skills and experience that most people don't have, which is like, I can fly into a random city, meet a dude with social anxiety, work with him for 2 days, and then like get him to do a bunch of things he didn't think he could do. Like I'm very confident I can do that. So if I can just catch that on tape and make a video out of it, then like that's pretty special.
How's your marketing team? How's the content team right now structured, and roughly how much do you think you're spending a month on this?
The content team right now is, I'm trying to separate video from everything else. So everything else, honestly, I could probably run everything that's not YouTube or video production related or podcast related, which we're going to launch next month. If you remove all that stuff, I could probably run everything else with 2 people. And I did run a team. It was just a team of 3 people for many, many years, pretty much up until I decided to like start distributing on all the social platforms. So just newsletter, blog, and social media, like non-video social media, I could do with 2 people. So a 3-man team. As soon as you add podcasts, that's probably gets to 4 people. And then once you add video, like really high quality video, now you're talking probably another 4 or 5 people just for the video side. So right now we're at 8 and I'm scrambling to hire more people. So we'll probably end up at 10 to 12.
Got it. Yeah, so similar to Hormozi and Cody, I have to assume you're spending anywhere from like 80 to like 150 a month, something like that. I'll just throw a range out there.
On people? Or
people plus just content in general.
Are we counting like hosting and shit like that or no?
No.
Okay.
Should we?
I mean, well, that's the funny thing is like these days, like a fucking newsletter platform is expensive as fuck.
What do you host it on?
ConvertKit.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, I mean, if you've got a list of like a million people,
they'll get you.
Like, dude, that's tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's that's expensive. My hosting bill is super expensive these days. I would say if you add everything together, all the video production, video team, I don't think we're over 100K. I'd say I would ballpark it probably 75-ish. Probably between 60 and 80, somewhere in there.
Yeah. I keep asking this question just so people understand that, hey, to build this content team, it's not free. It's like, oh, well, I don't spend on paid ads. So you're still spending on your content team.
Oh, for sure.
So it adds up. So who do you think's crushing it at YouTube right now? We kind of talked about this.
I mean, the people I'm most impressed, I mean, obviously there's Mr. Beast, but like the people I'm most impressed with, there's kind of like a younger cohort that's coming up behind Mr. Beast that are like doing a bunch of interesting things. There's a guy named Eric who's super smart. There's a guy named Ryan Trans, really unique, very clever, like does a lot with very little, like super lean team, low production value, and like fucking 5-10 million views per video. What Hormozi's done this year has been really impressive. Like Hormozi's a great example of like, if you're somebody who has the business chops in another industry and you come in and you make some very smart strategic hires, like you hire some, like he hired some really smart people from the content industry, like he found some of the best players and you find them and then you strategize well and then you execute well over a long period of time.
He's interesting to me because there's a period of time, maybe in the last 2 years, when I saw his channel rising quickly, this is when I had more subs in. I was like, oh man, but he's like, he overtook me in like a month, right? Yeah. It's not like I have a lot of subs, but he was just really consistent. And I think the way he talks is like, it just makes you feel smarter listening to it. Mm-hmm. And then he was consistent for a year. And then that's when he hired Caleb from Team Gary V.
Yep.
And then the team came together and boom, it's like 14 to 20 people now or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting too that he took Gary V's guy because in a lot of ways he kind of feels like the new Gary V to me. Like he reminds me a lot of Gary V when Gary started. Like Gary's kind of, I don't want to rip on Gary because I like Gary a lot, but
I get it.
Gary's content is kind of become like a parody of itself.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of just been recycling the same 10 talking points for 10 years.
Yeah.
But I remember when Gary blew up in like 2011, it was just this breath of fresh air. It was like, oh my God, this guy's like so real and he's so legit and he like actually fucking has he's actually built a business before. He's not just like, it's not a pyramid scheme, you know? Hormozi reminds me a lot of that. Like he's an excellent communicator. He's a very distinct personality, which always plays well on social. And he just fucking grinds, which in this day and age, a huge part of a content business is you just gotta fucking grind.
Dude, so this is what I wanted to bring up. So before you came in, I was looking at this guy. I think he still has to be in his mid-20s or so, or early 20s. But this guy, Nate O'Brien, I believe. So he's got like 1.3 million subs on YouTube. And I saw him tweet this out. He's like, as of today, so today, I am done with YouTube.
Yeah.
And then I look at the comments and people are like, why are you done with YouTube? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, whoa, are you going to go on TikTok next? He's like, no, I'm sick of the grind. And like, I'm just done with it. Right.
Yeah.
And then I remember having a conversation, I think last year with Jake Paul, right? So I think he had like 19, 20 million subs or whatever. His whole thing is like, I'm never going to beat Mr. Beast and he's just better at the game. And like, I'm just going to focus on something else. And it's interesting because I'm like, I believe YouTube's number one. You believe YouTube's number one. So it's like, it kind of ebbs and flows, right?
Sure. The burnout question, again, I think this kind of comes back to YouTube's a pretty young space. And so, a lot of these guys are 22, 23 years old. They've been going balls to the wall for 5 years and they're hitting their first bout of burnout. I mean, like, how old are you?
37.
Okay. I'm 39.
Yeah.
How many times have you been burnt out in your career?
More than I can count.
Yeah. Like it happens all the fucking time.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're young, it's kind of like your first breakup.
Yes. It hurts.
The first one, you're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
I'm never going to be okay. Yeah. And then you get over it. And the next time it happens, you're like, oh, it's this again. So like, I think burnout's a pretty normal part of most careers, and especially any entrepreneur. Like you talk to any startup founder, any tech person, like burnout's a very normal thing.
Plus there's variables too, because they probably didn't have teams earlier. Whereas like, okay, we're shelling out more money for our teams, right? And taking some of the pain off so it doesn't hurt as much.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like a breakup, you learn as you get older, you get better at dealing with it, right? So it's like now, today, if I start to feel burnt out, I notice it much sooner than I used to. And I know, like, take a vacation, take some time off, like back off a little bit, like it's not the end of the world. If you go away for a month, your audience isn't going to disappear. Like there's kind of this irrational insecurity that a lot of people in this space have. So I sympathize with it, but I also kind of look at it and I'm like, yeah, it's just kind of a lack of experience. I also think burnout in the content space, like obviously we all care about numbers. We all like hitting big numbers. It feels good. It's fun. It's like a video game, right? But if the only thing you're concerned about is the numbers, you're going to get burnt out way faster. Like you need to there needs to be something beyond simply hitting 1 million.
Can we go back to the blog for a second? Because I'm an SEO dude, right? So you're just writing and then it just started to compound on its own. I'm assuming you're not doing any link building or anything. It's just, good ass content.
Any like kind of more formal SEO attempts that we made over the years of like link building or whatever didn't really pan out. I had a lot of just natural virality. Like I had a period like 2012 to like 2016. I had a bunch of articles go super viral. So my backlink profile is pretty damn robust.
Is it because you're pushing on Facebook and Twitter and it just started going viral and everyone just started linking to it? Is that okay? Yeah,
primarily. My big competitive advantage early on, because I tried SEO stuff and I was just bad at it. My big competitive advantage early on that I attribute a lot of my success to is I think I just figured out before most people, Facebook rolled out their newsfeed in 2011. And I think I figured out before most people that the same way you optimize a thumbnail and a title on YouTube, like you can optimize a title and a cover photo on Facebook to get a lot of shares and clicks. And so I started writing my articles very specifically to optimize Facebook virality and just took advantage of it for
like BuzzFeed back in the day.
It's exactly what BuzzFeed did. Upworthy was another one back. Upworthy was actually the one.
Upworthy, yeah.
Because I remember seeing them pop up in so many spots and I was like, it was clear they were doing it on purpose and like kind of manufacturing it. And I was like, I wonder like if I did that for my blog, like what would that look like?
How much traffic were you getting to the blog each month?
At its peak, I think it peaked in like 2014 or 2015. At its peak, it was like 2.5 million uniques each month. And I think probably 6 or 8 million page views a month.
It's a lot. And the reason I even ask right now is just because you started with that and you focused on that before deciding to move into another area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I actually think it took me longer to move into other areas because I was because the blog had been so successful. Like I was very hesitant to move away from it. Like I actually kind of like was fighting against the tide, trying to like keep it going instead of building a podcast or a YouTube channel or something.